The morning sun hit the Kasara market with harsh, bright light. Hana had woken before dawn, as she always did, to arrange her fruit stand before the crowds came. She was a woman in her middle years, with strong hands that knew the soil and the weight of harvest. Her Korean heritage showed in the way she organized everything with careful precision, each apple stacked just right, each orange placed to catch the light. The colony was a strange place. Humans lived here under the shadow of the Vrethak Empire, buying and selling goods while keeping one eye always on the sky. The Vrethak were not kind rulers. They were not cruel either, exactly. They were something different. They saw humans the way humans saw useful tools, necessary but not important. Hana had come to this colony 5 years ago with nothing but her knowledge of growing things and her belief that even in difficult places, good food could bring people together. She had built her stand from wood salvaged from old structures. Her fruits came from the agricultural sector just outside the main colony, where humans worked under strict quotas to feed both the population and the Vrethak guards. As she was arranging a stack of mangoes, she heard something that made her freeze. Footsteps. Large footsteps. Heavy. She turned to see them coming through the market crowd. The humans parted like water around a stone. 2 young Vrethak, easily 7 feet tall even though they were clearly not full grown. Their scales shimmered with colors, deep blues and purples mixed with the sharp white markings of the elite guard caste. Their eyes were large and intelligent, set in narrow faces with teeth that showed when they moved their heads. They were terrifying to look at. Hana did not move. She watched as they passed other stalls. Merchants closed their shops. Customers disappeared into narrow alleys. The market had fallen almost silent, except for the sound of their thick feet on the stone floor. Then the cubs stopped. They stopped right at Hana's fruit stand. Hana's heart was beating very fast, but she did not show it on her face. She had been raised to stay calm in difficult moments. This was what her mother had taught her and her mother's mother before that. One of the cubs leaned down. Its massive head came close to the fruit. It was following something or someone. Then Hana saw him. Teo, the cargo officer. He was a young man, perhaps 30, with the tired eyes of someone who worked between 2 worlds and belonged fully to neither. He was trying to look like he was not with the cubs, but clearly he was the reason they were here. "It is okay," Teo said quietly to Hana. He spoke Korean, which was good. His accent was slightly off, but she understood him easily. "They are just curious. They will not hurt you." The second cub was looking at Hana now. It made a low sound in its throat, not quite a growl, not quite a purr. Something in between. What do they want?" Hana asked. Teo smiled a little. "They want to know about everything. They were born and raised on the warship. They have never been to a market before. I thought it would be good for them to see how the colony lives." He paused. "Also, they are hungry, but not for killing. They are hungry to understand." The first cub pointed one long, clawed finger at the mangoes. "Is this food?" it asked. Its voice was surprisingly soft for such a large creature. It had a slight clicking quality, as if something in its throat was making extra sounds under the words. Hana took a breath. She looked at the cub's face. She saw curiosity there, real curiosity. Not hunger for violence or meat. Just the simple question of a young creature asking about something it did not understand. "Yes," she said. Her voice did not shake. "This is food. It is called a mango. It comes from a tree. Inside, the fruit is soft and sweet. You can eat it." The cub looked at the other one. They made clicking sounds at each other. Then the first one looked back at Hana. "Can we taste?" Hana did not hesitate long. She reached out and took a perfectly ripe mango from her stack. She used a small knife to cut it in half. The sweet smell rose up immediately. She showed it to the cub. The cub leaned down and sniffed. Its large nostrils flared. "Good smell," it said. "Try it," Hana said. "Use your tongue." The cub's long tongue came out, much longer than a human's tongue, and touched the soft yellow flesh of the fruit. The cub's eyes went wide. "Sweet," it said with real surprise. "Why is it sweet? How?" "It grows that way," Hana explained. "The tree makes the sweetness. It is natural." The second cub was now pointing at different things on her stand. "And this? Is this food? And this?" It moved its finger along the oranges, the apples, the bananas, the pears. "Are all of these food?" Hana found herself smiling. "All of them. They are all food. Each one tastes different. Each one has different things your body needs to stay strong." Teo watched quietly. He seemed pleased but also nervous. He kept looking around the market as if he expected someone to appear and tell them all to leave. For the next hour, Hana taught the two cubs about her fruits. She showed them how to peel a banana. She let them taste an apple. She explained that oranges had juice inside. She told them about where each fruit came from, what season it grew in, how long it could last before it went bad. The cubs asked questions constantly. "Why is this orange orange? Can you grow these on the warship? Do all humans eat this much? Why do the ones we get in the military are brown and dried?" Their curiosity seemed endless, and it was completely genuine. Other merchants watched from a distance, shocked and confused. A human woman, not just speaking calmly to two young Vrethak warriors, but actually teaching them, laughing with them when one of them tried to eat an orange peel by mistake. When the cubs finally left with Teo, they both looked back at Hana's stand several times. One of them, the first one that had asked if the mango was food, made a sound that seemed like a pleased clicking noise. Teo smiled at her as they walked away. "Thank you," he said. "You are brave." After they were gone, Jiwon came over. She was Hana's friend, and her stall was just 2 stands away, selling dried goods. Jiwon was younger, perhaps 25, with the nervous energy of someone who had grown up during the occupation. "Are you crazy?" Jiwon asked. "Do you know what could have happened? Those are warriors, Hana. Elite warriors. They could have—" "But they did not," Hana said calmly. She was still arranging her fruit. "They were just young. They had never seen a real market. They did not know what real food was. Someone needed to show them." "You are going to get yourself killed," Jiwon said. But she did not sound angry. She sounded worried. "Maybe," Hana said. "Or maybe something different will happen. We will have to wait and see." She did not know it then. But that moment, when 2 young Vrethak cubs asked a simple question about a mango, would change everything. Not because she had any grand plan. Not because she was trying to start a revolution, but simply because she had treated young creatures with kindness and shown them something true about the world. Sometimes, that is all it takes. The cubs came back 3 days later. This time, they came alone. No Tayo to introduce them or make the situation seem less impossible. They simply appeared at Hana's stand in the early morning, before the market was fully awake, their large forms moving with surprising quietness for such big creatures. Hana recognized the first one from before. It had a small scar above its left eye in the shape of a thin line. The second one, the one who had asked all the questions, had a slightly lighter shade to its scales. "You came back," Hana said. She was not asking a question. It was a simple statement of fact. "We came back," the scared one confirmed. Its voice was still soft, still clicking slightly. "We want to learn more about food, about why it is different." Hana smiled. She had spent the last 3 days wondering if they would return. She had actually prepared for this moment. Though she had not admitted it to herself, she had set aside special fruits, things that showed the most interesting colors and tastes. "What are your names?" she asked. The cubs made sounds at each other that were not quite words. The scarred ones seemed to understand that Hana needed simpler communication. "We do not have the kind of names you have," it said. "We have sounds. In your language, we might be Min-seok and Daijun." It pointed to itself and then to the other. "These are close to the sounds. Is this acceptable?" "It is very acceptable," Hana said. "I am Hana. I am pleased to meet you properly, Min-seok and Daijun." Over the next days and weeks, they became regular visitors. At first, they came 3 times a week, then every day. The pattern became so normal that the market began to adjust. Merchants stopped closing their shops. Customers became used to the sight of 2 young Vrethak warriors learning about fruit. Hana named them to herself, and eventually to others. Min-seok was the curious one, the one who asked why about everything. Dae-jun was more careful, more thoughtful. He would taste something and then think about it for a long time before asking questions. They were different in personality, just like humans were different from each other. She taught them the difference between fruits that grew on trees and fruits that grew on bushes. She showed them which fruits were sweet and which were sour. She explained that some fruits could be stored for a long time and others needed to be eaten quickly. She showed them how to select a good fruit, how to check for soft spots, how to listen to the sound when you tapped it, how to smell it. One day, Min-seok asked a question that seemed simple, but was actually very deep. "Why do you choose different ones?" he asked. "If all fruit fills the belly, why does it matter which one you pick?" Hana paused in her work. She was holding an apple in one hand and an orange in the other. "Because," she said slowly, "food is not just about filling your belly. Food is about experience. It is about tasting something good. It is about enjoying what you eat. It is about the difference between just surviving and actually living." Min-seok's large eyes went very still. "Just surviving and living. These are different things." "Very different," Hana said. "Where you come from, you receive your nutrients in blocks, yes?" "Yes," Dae-jun said. "They are brown. They taste like nothing. We eat them because we must." "Exactly," Hana said. "You eat them to survive. But this," she bit into the apple, "you eat this because it tastes good, because you choose to, because it brings you pleasure. That is living." Jiwon had become less afraid and more interested. She started coming to Hana's stand on her breaks, watching the cubs learn. One day she brought a notebook and started writing things down. When Min-seok asked her what she was doing, she explained that she was a teacher and that this was the most interesting teaching she had ever seen. "You are teaching them how to think," Jiwon said to Hana one afternoon when the cubs had gone back to their ship. "Not just about fruit, about choice, about preference, about individual taste. These are revolutionary ideas for them." "I am just showing them what is real," Hana said. "What humans know but they have never been told." The relationship deepened. The cubs started asking about human culture. Why did humans make music? Why did humans create art? Why did humans have families that stayed together instead of leaving cubs to be raised by the state? Hana answered as best she could. She brought Min-seok and Dae-jun to see the small garden behind the market, where some of the human merchants grew extra herbs and vegetables. She showed them how things grew from seeds. She let them touch the soil with their thick fingers. One evening, as the sun was setting and painting the market in orange and red light, Min-seok asked Hana something very personal. "Do you fear us?" he asked. "Your kind fears our kind. We are built to be warriors, to be hunters, to be strong. But you do not fear us." Hana looked at him for a long moment. She thought about the question carefully before answering. "I fear what you could do," she said honestly. "You have power. You have strength. But I do not fear what you are. I see 2 young creatures who are learning, who are curious, who are trying to understand the world. That is not something to fear. That is something to protect." Daejun made a soft clicking sound. Protect. She would protect us. Yes, Hana said. I would. The news of the cubs' regular visits was spreading through the colony. Some humans thought Hana was foolish or even treacherous. Others thought she was doing something noble. The Vrethak command on the warship was becoming aware of the situation, but had not yet decided if it was a problem. Teo visited one day and told Hana that there were already questions being asked. Why were the warrior cubs spending so much time at a human market? Was it wise? Was it safe? What were they learning? Let them ask, Hana said. We are doing nothing wrong. We are just learning from each other. But even as she said it, she wondered if she was being naive. The Vrethak Empire was not kind to unexpected things, to things that did not fit into the careful structure of how they organized their society. Minseok and Daejun did not know, but the time of their simple lessons was about to end. Forces were already moving. Choices were about to be made that would be far bigger than the choice of which fruit to eat. For now, though, they sat with Hana and learned. They learned that a strawberry was not shaped like a star but could taste like one. They learned that a pineapple had a crown of leaves on top and spikes all over it but was soft and sweet inside. They learned that humans had spent thousands of years learning how to grow food in different places and different climates. Most importantly, they learned that the world was larger and more interesting than they had ever been taught. And that knowledge, once gained, could never be taken away. The predator cubs trailed her to the market. They pointed at every fruit, asking, "Is this food?" HFY Story outline, 6 parts. Part 1. First contact in the marketplace. Hana, a human agricultural trader in the outer colonies, was arranging her fruit stand at the bustling Kasara market when she noticed them. 2 young Vrethak cubs, apex predators from the neighboring warship, trailing behind a human cargo officer named Teo. The cubs were massive even for adolescents, their scaled hides shimmering with predatory markings that marked them as belonging to the Empire's elite guard caste. When the officer departed, the cubs approached Hana's stand with cautious curiosity. Unlike the fearful humans who quickly abandoned the market area, Hana remained calm and began pointing out her wares. The cubs' first question came simply, "Is this food?" as they gestured to a ripening mango. Hana realizes immediately that the Vrethak, despite their fearsome reputation, may have never encountered actual cultivated fruits. Their diet comes entirely from processed nutrient blocks issued by their military hierarchy. She decides to educate them, beginning with the simple act of teaching hungry creatures what food actually is. Key elements. Introduction to human Vrethak tensions. Hana's unique lack of fear, establishment of the cubs' innocence and curiosity, initial world building of the colony and hierarchy. The Satyr Part 2. Lessons in Sustenance. Over the next few days, the cubs, whom Hana names Minseok and Daejun, return to her stand regularly. Hana teaches them the difference between fruits, vegetables, and grains. She shows them how humans select produce by color, smell, and firmness. She explains nutrition in simple terms they can understand. The cubs become fascinated by the concept of choice. In their military structure, they are given nutrients. They do not select them. The very idea of preference in food, of taste as something separate from pure caloric intake, is revolutionary to them. Ji-won, a fellow human trader and Hana's close friend, initially warns her about the danger. But as days pass, even she begins to see that the cubs are not threats, they are learners. The other humans in the market begin to notice the unusual sight, a human woman teaching predators about fruit. Meanwhile, the Vrethak command on the warship becomes aware of the cubs' frequent absences. A senior officer, Commander Tak, becomes suspicious. Why are the Empire's future warriors spending time at a human market? Is this infiltration? Sabotage? Key elements. Development of the human Vrethak bond, introduction of secondary characters, deepening of the Cubs' understanding, rising tension from the command structure, themes of choice and freedom versus conditioning. Part 3. The Command's Intervention. Commander Tak arrives at the market with a detachment of elite guards, his intention clear: retrieve the Cubs and investigate potential treason. He finds Hana sitting with Min Seok and Dae Jun, teaching them about the sweetness of ripe berries and how climate affects growth. To Tak's shock, when he orders the Cubs to leave, they hesitate. For the first time in their lives, they must choose between the authority they were bred to obey and the connection they've formed with Hana. The scene becomes tense, guards hand on weapons, the market evacuating in panic. Hana, with a clarity born of conviction, speaks directly to Tak. She explains that she has not poisoned or manipulated the Cubs. She has simply shown them what humans have known for millennia, that there is nourishment not just in food, but in the freedom to choose what you consume, in understanding the world around you, in connection with others. Tak is a soldier, bound by duty, but he is also something more. He watches his charges struggle with the choice before them, and he begins to question the Empire's philosophy that consciousness is a liability in warriors. The Cubs ultimately choose to leave with their commander, but something has changed. They now know that another way exists. Key elements. Climactic confrontation, moral questioning of the established order, showcasing Hana's humanity as a strength rather than weakness, the Cubs' first real choice, planting seeds of doubt in Tak's mind. Part 4. The Gift and the Consequence. After their forced departure, Hana receives an unexpected delivery at her stand. A sealed container. Inside is a note in broken but sincere handwriting from Min Seok and Dae Jun, along with several pressed flowers and sketches of the fruits Hana taught them about. The Cubs have risked punishment to send her this gift. Proof of their growth, proof of their memory, proof that they are thinking beyond their conditioning. News of this spreads through the colony quickly. Humans see it as evidence that even the Vrethak can be reached, that the Empire is not monolithic and inhuman, but for the Vrethak command, it becomes something else. Proof of weakness, of contamination by human sentiment. Pressure begins mounting on the colonial government. The Vrethak Empire demands that Hana cease her interactions with the Cubs, threatening to revoke trading rights and military protection for the colony. The human administrators turn to Hana, asking her to stop, to protect the colony from economic collapse. But Teo, the cargo officer from the beginning, steps forward with something remarkable. He has been quietly documenting the positive effects of the Cubs' exposure to human culture. He presents evidence that the Cubs' cognitive performance has actually improved, that their problem-solving and adaptability have increased. Consciousness, he argues, does not weaken warriors. It makes them better. Key elements. Emotional payoff of the relationship, consequences and tension, demonstration of the Cubs' growth, introduction of a human ally in a position of power, scientific logical argument for cultural exchange. Trois, Part 5. The Empire Fractures. Teo's report triggers something larger than anyone anticipated. Within the Vrethak military structure, there are already reformists, commanders, and scientists who have questioned the rigid conditioning of their people. Teo's evidence becomes a rallying point. Min Seok and Dae Jun, now back with their unit, begin quietly teaching other young Vrethak what Hana taught them. They share sketches of fruit, explain the concept of choice in nutrition, demonstrate that consciousness can coexist with duty. Commander Tak, after much internal struggle, makes a choice of his own. He authorizes a small, unofficial exchange program between Vrethak youth and human traders. It is framed in military terms: cultural intelligence gathering, understanding human commerce and agriculture, But the true purpose is what Hana began: education, exposure, awakening. The Vrethak Empire's upper echelon notices but cannot act decisively. To crush the movement would require acknowledging that consciousness and capability are connected, concepts the Empire's foundation rests on denying. Min Seok and Dai Jun visit the market again, this time openly. They bring other cubs with them. Hana expands her teaching, and other traders, inspired by her example, begin their own exchanges. Ji-won opens a small classroom to teach Vrethak language and culture. An elderly Vrethak scientist named Kyo Sung begins documenting human agricultural practices, fascinated by the systematic way humans have learned to coax food from worlds that are not their own. Key elements: consequences rippling outward, the beginning of systemic change, the cubs as symbols of transformation, formation of a movement larger than individuals, the suggestion that change comes from quiet, persistent choice, rather than rebellion. Part 6. The Fruit That Grew from Seeds. 6 months later, the market looks different. Vrethak and humans work side by side. Young warriors study human texts. Human traders learn Vrethak martial techniques and philosophy. The boundary between them and us has not disappeared, but it has become permeable, navigable. Hana stands with Min Seok and Dai Jun, who are now noticeably larger, their adolescence progressing into adulthood. They are still members of the military elite, still bound by duty, but they are also individuals with preferences, with memories, with connections that transcend species and empire. An important delegation from the Vrethak homeworld arrives to investigate the cultural contamination in the colony. But what they find surprises them. Productivity is up, conflict is down, and the military readiness of the Vrethak units has not decreased, it has improved. Soldiers who understand the cultures they protect make better decisions. The delegation's leader, an ancient Vrethak diplomat named Su Jin, meets with Hana privately. She asks, "How did you know that showing them fruit would change everything?" Hana's answer is simple. "I didn't know it would change everything. I just knew it was right to teach hungry creatures what food actually was. The rest, the consciousness, the choice, the change that came from them, from Min Seok and Dai Jun and Tak and all the others who were brave enough to ask, 'Is this food?' and then brave enough to ask, 'What else is there?'" Sujin leaves the colony with a harvest of fresh fruits, a collection of human agricultural texts, and something far more valuable: the knowledge that her empire has been underestimating itself, that consciousness was never a weakness to breed out, it was a strength to cultivate. The final image: Hana's market stand, now tended jointly by humans and Vrethak, with young creatures of both species learning to taste, to choose, and to think for themselves. Key elements: resolution showing systemic change, the cubs matured but still shaped by their education, vindication of Hana's compassion through practical results, larger questions about empires and identity, hope for continued growth, thematic completion showing how individual acts of teaching can transform civilizations. Thematic summary. This story explores how humanity's greatest strength lies not in weapons or dominance, but in the capacity to teach, to recognize consciousness and potential in others, and to insist on the dignity of choice, even something as simple as the freedom to taste different foods. In the face of an empire built on conditioning and control, Hana's simple act of education becomes revolutionary. The Vrethak are not conquered, they are awakened. And that awakening comes not through force, but through the patient demonstration that there is more to existence than what they have been given, and that reaching for it is not weakness, but growth. 3 weeks after Commander Tak's visit, Hana found something unusual in her market stall early one morning. A small container made of smooth Vrethak material, sealed with a symbol she did not recognize. Inside was a handwritten note. The handwriting was clumsy, the letters uncertain and large, but the message was clear. It was in Korean, though with some words spelled incorrectly, and it was signed with a symbol, and then below it, the names Min Seok and Dae-jun. The note said, "Thank you for teaching us. We think of you every day. We pressed these flowers from the place where we sleep. We drew pictures of the things you showed us. We wanted you to know we are different now. We are not the same warriors we were before. We are happy about this. We hope you are not sad about what has happened. We did not mean to cause problems for you." Inside the container, along with the note, were several pressed flowers and a collection of careful drawings. The drawings showed mangoes and oranges and apples, rendered in a simple but beautiful way. There were also drawings of Hannah herself, standing at her fruit stand. Though her face was too large and her hands were too small in the Vrethak artist's eye. But the care in the drawing was obvious. Hannah held the drawings in her hands and felt tears come to her eyes. These young warriors had risked something by sending this. They had sent proof of their feeling, proof of their connection to her, proof that they were thinking and choosing and feeling. She showed the drawings to Ji-won, who read the note and immediately became very serious. "This is dangerous," Ji-won said. "This is evidence. If the Vrethak command sees this, they will see it as proof of contamination, proof that you have corrupted the warriors." "Let them see it," Hannah said. "I have done nothing wrong." "Hannah," Ji-won said quietly, "you have done something that threatens the entire Vrethak system of control. That is not nothing." Within days, the news spread through the human colony. The Vrethak had sent a gift to a human merchant. The young warriors were not just visiting the market, they were emotionally attached to Hannah. The story spread and grew with each telling, until Hannah was being discussed in every building and street in the colony. Some humans thought she was foolish and dangerous. Others thought she was heroic and brave. Many were simply confused. How could a human be friends with the species that occupied their world? The colonial government called her to a meeting. A human administrator named Park, who managed the colony under Vrethak authority, sat across from her in a small official room. "You understand what you have done?" Park asked. He was an older man, tired-looking, with gray hair and the worried expression of someone caught between two powers. "I taught young creatures about fruit," Hannah said. "That is all." "You have taught them to question," Park said. "Do you know what the Vrethak command thinks about questioning? They believe it is a disease. They believe it spreads. They are very concerned about what has happened with those two cubs." "Then perhaps they are wrong," Hannah said. "Perhaps questioning is not a disease. Perhaps it is a sign of health." Park put his head in his hands. "The Vrethak have given me an ultimatum. Either you stop all contact with the cubs and leave the market, or they will reduce the military protection on the colony. We will become less secure. Food shipments may be delayed. People could starve." Hannah felt her stomach drop. This was what she had feared. Her actions were now affecting not just herself, but everyone in the colony. "I cannot do that," Hannah said. "I cannot abandon them." "You must," Park said, "for the good of the colony, for all of us. You must stop this immediately." But before Hannah could respond, there was a knock on the door. Teo entered. He looked very serious and also very determined. "I need to speak," Teo said. "I have a report. A scientific analysis of the two young Vrethak warriors. I have been documenting their progress and changes since they began visiting the market." "This is not appropriate," Park said. This is very appropriate," Teo interrupted. He placed a document on Park's desk. "I have evidence that consciousness does not weaken the warriors. It strengthens them. Their problem-solving abilities have increased by 40%. Their physical performance has remained stable. Their ability to adapt to new situations has improved dramatically. According to every military measure, they are better warriors than they were before. Park looked at the document. His expression changed slightly. "How is this possible?" Park asked. "The Vrethak believe that consciousness creates weakness." "The Vrethak believe many things that are not true," Teo said. "But facts are facts, and the facts are clear. Consciousness does not weaken warriors. It makes them better." Park read through the report. Hana could see him thinking, weighing the dangers against the evidence. "Even if this is true," Park said finally, "the Vrethak command will not accept it. They are built on different principles. They see this as a threat to their entire system." "Then perhaps their system needs to be threatened," Teo said quietly. "Perhaps it is a system that should change." Park looked at Hana. "Do you understand that you are asking me to go against the direct orders of the Vrethak?" "I am not asking you to do anything," Hana said. "I am just going to continue doing what I believe is right. What you do is your choice." Park was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, "I will not order you to stop, and I will not order the military to increase their restrictions. But I am warning you that the Vrethak command is very upset. There are forces at work that you do not understand." As Hana left the meeting, she felt both relieved and terrified. She had been given permission to continue, but the danger was real. The Empire was large and powerful and did not like to be challenged. Over the next weeks, something unexpected happened. Other Vrethak began to show interest in the market. Not all of them, but some. Younger ones mostly, but also some older warriors who had heard the stories. Commander Tak had apparently told no one to stop them. He was walking a careful line between loyalty to the Empire and something else. Some kind of recognition that change was coming, and it might be better to guide it than to fight it. The flowers and drawings that Min-seok and Daijun sent became something more. They became proof that the Vrethak were capable of feeling and connection. They became a symbol, whether anyone meant them to be or not. Hana kept them in her home. She looked at them when she was afraid. They reminded her that what she was doing mattered. That two young warriors had been touched by kindness and education, and that touch had created something real. She did not know that her small act of teaching was about to become something much larger. She did not know that her fruit stand was about to become a place where something revolutionary would grow. She only knew that she had done what felt right, and that sometimes doing what feels right is the most powerful thing a person can do. The movement did not start with a grand announcement or a clear moment when someone decided to begin it. It started quietly, with simple conversations and shared ideas that spread like seeds on the wind. Ji-won opened a small classroom in an empty building near the market. She began teaching Vrethak language and culture to other humans who wanted to learn. It was organized as a trade education program, officially sanctioned as something that would help humans do business better with the military. In reality, it was something more. It was humans and Vrethak trying to understand each other. Tayo continued his research. He wrote more reports, each one adding to the evidence that consciousness and capability were not opposites, but partners. Other scientists in the colony began to notice his work. Some of them began their own observations. The evidence was building piece by piece. Min-seok and Daijun became something like teachers themselves. They brought other young Vrethak to the market. Not officially, not sanctioned by the command, but also not forbidden. There was a careful space opening up, a space where new things could happen. An older Vrethak scientist named Kyo-sung appeared at Hana's stand one day. He was ancient by Vrethak standards. His scales faded to a light gray, his movements slow but still precise. He carried with him a collection of papers and charts. "I am Kyo-sung," he said to Hana. "I have spent my life studying agriculture on our homeworld. I have read about your work here. I wish to observe. I wish to understand how you make plants produce so much nutrition in a place where they do not naturally grow. Hana welcomed him. Over the following weeks, Kyo-sung came to the market every day. He asked questions about soil composition, water management, the way humans selected seeds for certain qualities. He took notes and made drawings, and slowly he began to speak about something revolutionary. In our empire, Kyo-sung told Hana one afternoon, agriculture is seen as simple work. We provide nutrients. We control the supply. We do not think about it beyond this, but you have shown me something different. You have shown me that understanding the science of growth, the art of cultivation, the choice in what to produce, these things are not simple at all. They are beautiful. They are complex. They are worthy of study and respect. Word of these changes began to reach higher levels of the Vrethak command. There was concern. There were meetings. Some powerful figures wanted to shut down the market, remove Hana, and restore proper order. But Commander Tak was not one of them. Tak began to make small official changes. He authorized a cultural exchange program, framed as a way to help young warriors understand human psychology better, which was supposedly important for military strategy. In reality, it was a way to officially allow Vrethak youth to spend time with humans without it being a violation of protocol. He also did something else. He quietly transferred several reformist-minded officers into positions of influence. Officers who believed that the empire was large enough and strong enough that it could afford to evolve. That consciousness in its warriors was not a threat, but a strength. The changes were not dramatic. They were not revolutionary in any loud or obvious way. But they were real. They were happening. One day, a delegation from the Vrethak homeworld arrived. They came to investigate the situation that had been reported to the Empire's high command. They wanted to see for themselves what was happening in this colony. They wanted to understand how young warriors could abandon their conditioning and still be productive. The lead ambassador was a Vrethak named Sujin. She was smaller than most male warriors, with scales that shimmered with subtle colors. Her eyes held the intelligence of someone who had lived through many changes and understood that the world was not as simple as authority liked to pretend. She spent a day observing the market. She watched Min Seok and Daijun showing other young Vrethak how to select good fruit. She watched Kyo-sung making notes on agricultural science. She watched Hana patiently teaching anyone who wanted to learn. At the end of the day, Sujin requested a private meeting with Hana. They sat in Hana's small home, which was not far from the market. Sujin looked around at the simple furnishings. The books on shelves, the evidence of a human life lived with intention and care. "Tell me," Sujin said, "how you knew that this would work. How you knew that giving consciousness to young warriors would not destroy them." Hana took a moment before answering. "I did not know," she said. "I did not know anything except that it felt wrong to withhold knowledge from creatures who were hungry to understand. I did not have a plan to change the empire. I just wanted to teach two young creatures what food actually was." Sujin made a soft clicking sound. "And yet you changed everything." "No," Hana said. "I did not change everything. I showed them that choice was possible. Min Seok and Daejun and Commander Tak and Kyo-sung and everyone else. They are the ones who made the real changes. They are the ones brave enough to think different thoughts and make different choices." Sujin stood and walked to the window. Outside, the market was closing for the evening. The last of the traders were packing up their goods. The last of the customers were heading home. "The empire is built on the idea that consciousness is weakness," Sujin said. "That order comes from control, not from understanding. For thousands of years we have believed this. But I am beginning to wonder if we have been wrong." "You are not the only one," Hana said. Sujin turned back to face her. "I came here to close this down, to end this experiment. to restore order. But I have seen something here that I cannot unsee. I have watched young Vrethak warriors learn to think for themselves, and I have watched them become better, not worse. I have watched humans and Vrethak work together without conflict or deception. I have watched a woman teach with kindness and see that kindness returned as loyalty and growth. She paused. I do not know what this means for the Empire, but I know what I saw was true. Before Sujin left the colony, she visited the market one more time. She spoke with Minseok and Daejun. She spoke with Commander Tak and with Kyosung. She gathered samples of Hana's fruit and examined them scientifically. When she boarded the ship to return to the homeworld, she carried with her something more valuable than data or reports. She carried the understanding that change was not only possible, but already happening. And sometimes, the role of leadership is not to stop change, but to guide it. Within weeks, official correspondence came from the Vrethak homeworld. The exchange program was approved. The market would be protected. Young Vrethak warriors would be allowed to spend time in human settlements, learning about culture, agriculture, and commerce. It was framed as a military intelligence program, which technically it was. But it was also something more. It was an official acknowledgement that consciousness and capability were partners, not enemies. The change was slow and quiet, but it was real. The Empire was beginning to transform, not all at once, but piece by piece. A young warrior learning about fruit, a scientist making notes about agriculture, a commander making small choices that added up to revolution. And at the center of it all was Hana's fruit stand, where it had all begun. Where a woman had simply done what felt right and changed everything.